There are stories whispered across generations, tales of shadows that lurk just beyond our sight. One such story is about the Mirror Man. They say he lives within reflections, waiting for those who dare to look too closely, too long at night. The longer you stare, the closer he gets, until one night he crosses over. Our story tonight is about a young woman from London named Peggy, and what she discovered about the shadows in her own reflection. Peggy had recently moved into an old charming flat in London. The building stood along a narrow street lined with Victorian facades, its walls holding secrets from lifetimes past. The apartment was a bit dusty, a bit worn, but she loved its character and history. She especially liked the beautiful old-fashioned mirrors in every room, each with intricate vintage frames that gave the place a unique charm. But as she settled in, she began noticing something strange. At night, when she would turn off the lights, she'd catch glimpses of shadows in the mirrors, faint but undeniable. At first, she blamed the creaky old building, or maybe her imagination. But night after night, the shadow grew more distinct, a shape that seemed to stand just behind her. One night, Peggy finally saw it. A faint outline of a man appeared in her reflection just behind her. He was dark, blurry, his features hard to make out, but his eyes, they seemed to stare straight into hers, hollow and unyielding. She froze, terrified, unable to look away. Then in a heartbeat, he was gone. Only her own reflection stared back, but the feeling lingered. She wasn't alone. From that night on, Peggy started covering the mirrors before bed, hoping to banish whatever strange presence was in her home. But it didn't help. He was there in every surface that could cast her reflection. Her bathroom mirror, her kitchen window, even the polished silverware on her dining table. He was always there, watching. Frightened and desperate, Peggy turned to the internet. She searched everything she could about mirrors, hauntings, and apparitions. And finally, she found an obscure forum where people shared stories of seeing the same figure. A shadowy man in the mirror, getting closer and closer each time. They called him the Mirror Man, and claimed he was a spirit that lived in reflections, watching, waiting to cross over into our world. The legend spanned cultures and continents, and one user, a woman in Japan, detailed a ritual to keep him from crossing over. A midnight chant performed in front of a candlelit mirror. But the warning was clear. If you start the ritual, you mustn't break concentration, or he'll be able to enter your world, and there would be no way to send him back. Peggy knew it was a long shot, but fear drove her to try the ritual. At midnight, she locked herself in her room, uncovering one of the mirrors. She lit a single candle, casting a dim, eerie glow around her, and began the chant. As her voice filled the room, the Mirror Man's figure grew clearer, his face materializing in the reflection. He stood directly behind her now, his dark eyes fixed on hers, his hand pressing against the glass as if struggling to push through. Just as Peggy neared the final line of the chant, her phone buzzed on the bed behind her. The sound jolted her concentration, her voice faltered, and in that moment, the Mirror Man's hand broke through the glass. With a shuddering, inhuman smile, he stepped through the mirror, his body forming slowly, piece by piece. Peggy stumbled back, horrified, as his shadow loomed over her, filling the room with his presence. She tried to scream, but the sound caught in her throat. Everywhere she turned, he was there, in every mirror, every window, every reflective surface in her flat. By morning, Peggy was gone. The only trace she left behind was a message scrawled on the mirror. Once you see him, he sees you forever. Peggy's final warning was left online for anyone who might find it, a desperate attempt to save others from the fate she couldn't escape. So, if you ever find yourself staring into a mirror, and you notice a shadow that doesn't quite belong, look away. Because if you don't, he'll know. And once he's seen you, he'll follow you. Forever. Remember, never look too closely into a mirror after dark. You might not like what's staring back,